Hello and welcome. If this is your first time with us, thank you so much for stopping by. You are listening to Choose to Endure, the show dedicated to the back of the pack runners, where we share stories, interviews, gear, and training tips specific to the tail end heroes of the ultra universe. If you haven't had a moment to do so yet, please consider heading over to your favorite podcast app, hit follow, rate the show, and if you're on Apple, you have the opportunity to leave a short review too. Those things are like gold dust and really appreciated. My name is Richard Gleave. I've been running ultras since 2017. I've taken on and finished numerous distances at this point, all the way up through 220 miles, and I am unashamedly a member of the back of the pack, just like many of you. Now, today, I am thrilled to bring you a conversation with Mr. Jonathan Prosser, a dedicated ultra runner from Topeka, Kansas. Now, Jonathan is not only a husband and father of two sons with a daughter on the way, but he's also the owner of Rocking Chair Running and race director of the Skyline Scramble, which is a 3, 6, and 12-hour timed race out there in Topeka. Jonathan's journey into ultra running began in 2018 as part of an intentional shift towards a healthier lifestyle after struggling with being overweight. Since then, he's fallen in love by his own admission with trail running, pushing his limits, and embracing every new experience along the way. And he's a current Ultraverse supplements ambassador. Now, in the episode here, we're going to dive into Jonathan's recent accomplishment at the inaugural Summit 200, a grueling new 200-mile race through the mountains of Summit County, Colorado, put on by none other than Chase and Casey Hammond of Ultraverse Supplements, who, you may recall, talked about this new event as part of a pretty epic conversation right here on the show that got us kicked off with Season 2 in Episode 1. So if you haven't already done so, definitely go listen to that one to get some additional background into how they put on this amazing new race. Whether you're a seasoned ultra runner or just getting started, Jonathan's story is definitely going to inspire you. So let's jump in, hear all about his incredible first-time 200 journey. What a one to pick.
Discover raw, inspiring stories from runners who've been right where you are. This is the Choose to Endure Ultra Running Podcast with your host.
He's English, not Australian.
Richard Gleave.
Jonathan, welcome to the show. Fantastic to have you on. It's been a little while since the run. I hope you're rested up and healing well at this point. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Feel good. Feel recovered. Been doing some training for the next event. So,
wow.
All's been well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, before we get into the race itself, I would love to hear a little bit about how you got into ultra running in the first place, and what are some key experiences or races that maybe have shaped your running career prior to Summit 200?
Yeah, so I used to play basketball a lot, and I started running consistently to try to just get in shape better. And my wife took it upon herself to sign me up for my first half marathon.
How kind.
Yeah. At the time, I think the longest distance I had done was like 6 miles. And I was like, okay, we're doing a half. And it just completely snowballed after that. I loved it. I loved the experience, loved the community. And I was like, I got to, from then I looked for a marathon, did the Kansas City Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Shortly after that. And then I just kept looking for what's next, So I think I ran my first ultra, it would have been January of 19, I think, or 18.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 19. Yeah, it was just a local one around Lake Perry. And it was a great experience. I knew then and there that I, wanted to keep doing ultras, and how far I didn't know at the time, but it just, I loved the experience, and the community was a huge reason why I loved it. even more. But so that's kind of how I started. Some of the races that like early on, like I think I did my first 50K, and then I had heard of David Goggins, went down that bunny hole of listening to all his podcasts, book, things like that. And I heard about the Leadville 100, and I was like, this is crazy. It was the first time I had ever heard, somebody running 100. I was like, this is nuts. There's this many people doing this. And I was like, I got to have a piece of that. And like right then I was like, I want to do Leadville. And so I was fortunate enough to run the Austin Rattler down in Texas.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Got a ticket.
Yeah.
I was so excited. Decided to defer running it in 2021, and ended up going to run it in 2022. And I was blessed with a body that got me through it. And
fantastic.
It was just, that was an awesome race experience. Having, I had hired a coach, Cliff Pittman, who works with CTS coaching. And
oh yeah,
I just wanted to take it serious. I was like, this is a huge investment, but also like, I don't know if I can get back to there. So yeah, I took it real serious, did the training. It was probably one of my hardest training blocks that I've done so far. But yeah, I just having everybody there, I got to run the last street up into the finish with everybody that was there, my kids. My wife was recording at the finish line, and, seeing faces like Scott Jurek cheering for you when you come across the finish line, it was like,
oh, wow, this
is unreal. And so
that's wild.
Yeah. So just riding that high, it was a great experience, and looked on to the next one a couple months after that. Like, what do I want to do? And that's kind of been what drives, is like any race that I do, it's a race that I really want to do.
Yeah. This
is a passion for me. And I know it's a hobby and it takes a lot of time, but there's no race that I'm going to sign up for that's just to get that buckle. Or I genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah. There's got to be something about it, like something interesting to pull you in. It's not just, I'm just going to throw away race, unless it's maybe a build up to as part of a training block to something else. But yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
Now, for those that maybe aren't aware or didn't listen to season 2, episode 1, where Chase and Casey were talking about Summit 200, I think maybe we should start off with having you tell us a little bit about the race, and then why you chose it as your first 200 miler. Was it the challenge, the scenery, or something else that motivated you to take on this really difficult 200-mile race as your very first one? I mean, I think that's wild and bold. I'm not sure. You'll have to, maybe it's all of that. I don't know.
I'll start with why I picked it. So I had originally picked the KD 225 as my first 200, and not because I love flat, that was kind of the opposite. And the reason I picked that race, one, Chase and Casey are awesome. They're some of the best, most genuine race directors that I've dealt with at a race, and just talking to them after races, they're just genuine people and want to build the sport. And so when I saw that they had this race, I'm like, it starts in Clinton, Missouri. That's like a couple hours from my house. I was like, this is a perfect opportunity. I can volunteer and stuff and help pay for it. It was just a good opportunity. And the reason I had picked that is because I wanted the challenge, because for me, I don't necessarily like flat miles, right? It's not my favorite, but I wanted to see if I could push through that mental, physical barrier of doing that. It was kind of unfortunate. The race kind of got pulled out from under them a week and a half before it. And
yeah, that was terrible.
There was a lot of us that were disappointed that we couldn't run it, but also just for them, it was kind of messed up and heartbreaking for them. But so that was my first one that I picked. But with the choosing the Summit, it was for those first reasons. Chase and Casey were directing it, I absolutely love Colorado. I love the mountains. I've been fortunate enough to race there with Leadville and a couple other like 50 milers. So I knew right then and there, I was like, I want to do this. You know, can I make it happen? And it was kind of daunting thinking, okay, is it even possible for me to do this? Like 100 kind of broke me in the mountains. I just talked. I just talked to a lot of people that have had a lot more experience than me, and they kind of shared their takes on it and why they thought I could do it. And there's just different aspects of 200 that are very, very different, not just in terms of the distance, but the pace you have to keep. I already had things down like fueling and like gear and stuff like that. So it was still a learning curve.
So this was all about the challenge for you, really, more than anything else, and the fact that you get to do it in Colorado, up in the mountains there, back to kind of the Leadville type area.
Yeah, Summit County. I've been there in the winter skiing and stuff, but never got to experience it in the summertime. So it was like, I got to do this.
So from a preparation and training perspective, then, once you decided to go and put your hat in for a Summit 200, how did you go about training for this challenge? Did you do, like, what kind of build-up did you do? What kind of block had you done? Especially given that I think Kansas is relatively flat, much like here in Texas, and clearly Colorado is not. So what was your training like getting ready for Summit 200?
Well, we have some favorite hills, and these hills are not very big. I think the biggest hill we have is maybe 190 feet. So hill repeats are an absolute must, whether you like them or not. You know, hours of going up and down the select hills that we have that's the only choice, unless you want to get on a treadmill and hike the incline up. But that doesn't really give you the technical aspect or the real foot feel.
And I don't think we went back and said, but I think Summit 200 is 40,000 feet of vert or something like that? You start at 9,000 feet and go up to 12.5 and 40,000 feet of vert and drop.
Yeah.
Which is just insane.
Yeah. It doesn't sound super crazy over 200 miles compared to like Ouray with like 40,000 feet and 100. But I guarantee you will feel all of that 38,000 feet or 40,000, whatever it is.
So you found your hill in Kansas and did, I would imagine, some number of repeats on that hill. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I knew that I had to carry a larger pack, a heavier pack than I was used to. So that was the biggest change for me, training for this versus other hundreds. It was just getting used to the weight. So I had started with a weight vest, just doing hill repeats with that. I'd go as long as I could and then take it off and then keep going without it. But for the most part, my training, I didn't necessarily get more miles or even harder miles. It was just more specific to exactly what I was doing. I did a lot more hiking than I had ever done in previous training blocks, just with weight. With my hiking poles, I was like, I'm going to get it, as close to what I'm going to be carrying, what I'm going to be doing. Because the majority of the 200, you're not running, right? Yeah.
You're trying to fast hike and run some. So just trying to keep it as specific as possible. I think I had some big training in races that I picked before the summit. It was kind of my year of going past 100 and seeing what I could do. In February of this year, I started with the Outlaw 135, and that is one tough race. It's technical. It's got hills, but there's something about that course. Like the first 50 miles, you can be like, "Oh, this isn't that bad," and then the second half, you're like, "This is the worst thing ever." So it was a fun race, and I was able to snag DFL at that race, which I'm very, very, I've never been more proud to be DFL, and I will gladly claim that.
I love DFL, and I was talking with Victor Ballesteros on a previous episode, and he said we shouldn't call it DFL anymore. We should call it the Rising Star Award.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going with moving forward, like the Rising Star.
All right. So there's other races, the Sticks. We got to run together out there at the 72 hours at the Sticks. And my goal for that one was kind of just practice sleep, practice foot care as needed, just some other things that, going past 100 things that are kind of necessary to know and go before going into a 200. So I just had fun with it,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think sleep's a big one past 100, because most people can strong arm your way through one night and keep going. But once you get into a second, third, fourth night, if you're not on top of your sleep, in particular, I mean, other things too, but particularly sleep can really start getting to you after a while. So for me, I've always thought for 200s is you've got to really nail your sleep somehow. And it changes based on the 200. But yeah, that's a great one to practice how far you can and can't go before you really need to crash. And then when you do need to crash, like, what do I need? Is it short naps? Is it longer stuff? Like, what is it? I don't think people really get, I don't think it plays as big as a part of it as it probably could in strategy for really any 200 for that matter.
Yeah. So that was the first race that I had ever actually gotten more than like a 5-minute or 10-minute, dirt nap. And so it was great knowing, like, getting a little bit of sleep. I was able to get back up. I felt so much better doing so. And so having that knowledge going into the summit was huge for me. I was like, all right, I do need to sleep. It'll propel me forward faster than if I try to avoid it.
And that's the thing I don't think people quite grasp. They just think, if I just go through it, I'm still moving, right? But there's a lot of times, if you stop for an hour, 2, or even 3 hours, the boost you get on the other side of that more than makes up for the lack of time that you've been moving really slowly at a snail's pace had you not slept. So just the mental boost and the physical boost you get can be a real game changer. But I think people have it in their head that I got to keep moving as far as and as slow as I can to just be moving. And I'm not sure there's a lot of unknowns about 200 training still. I don't think anyone's really got it nailed in yet as a here's exactly what you need to do. But sleep is a big one for me. Yeah.
I don't know that I definitely think that it helped a lot. And trying to make up time, I don't think that I would have sacrificed the sleep in order to make up the time.
So let's talk about the race itself then.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a strategy going in? And how did you plan to manage pacing and then nutrition? And we talked a little bit about sleep there, and then kind of look after yourself on, because I think there's some really fairly long unsupported sections of that course as well. So like what was your strategy going into this race? How did you approach it?
So I was planning on and did start the race with Lisa Marie and Renee. You might have met them out at the Sticks.
Oh, yes. Futsal Griffins. Hello there. Yeah. Renee's an Arsenal fan, but I forgive him for that because he was kind of nice. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, Lisa Marie is a Broncos fan, so I have to get over that.
There you go.
I'm not sure how I can do that, but... yeah, so I started the race with them, and I was, I had my own race strategy, but I also wanted to stick with them because they have way more experience with these longer distances than I do. And so it just kind of gave me a peace of mind not to go out too fast or too slow and just to relax. And that was kind of my strategy, kind of mooching off of their race strategy until I got a pacer at 72 miles. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. I have a hard time with coming up with a complete race strategy, and I put one together, and for me, it always seems to just go awry. Like it never works out perfectly, or so it's kind of just more of like a parameter of like, yes, I want to do this. I should,
Yeah, I think that's actually quite a good strategy in of itself. I mean, there's a lot of people, me included, that have built strategies for races where you plan out almost every mile, every between aid station section as far as time and pace and all that kind of stuff. And it gets really overwhelming when you're in the middle of it, trying to figure out, am I still on it? Am I off it? What do I need to do to catch up? Where am I going to be? And so I'm gravitating more towards giving yourself the latitude to kind of move around and just go with the flow a little bit. It seems way less stressful to me at a race that's already pretty stressful. So yeah, I think there's a lot of merit in just sort of maybe not have no plan, but just have broad swaths of, okay, I know I need to be here by around about this time, so that's what I'll shoot for, and I can go faster, slower, in between, and do what I want to do. I think that seems like a way less stressful way to approach racing, for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultra running in a sense, right? You're adapting to the things that you can't see, and it can change so much. You can be feeling great and feel like, okay, well, I'm going to push here. Just go with the flow, really, and adapt on the go. My only main thing was like, all right, well, I definitely want to stay ahead of cutoffs. And so
right,
that was my overarching, like, watch the cutoff time. I wanted to try to get about 4 hours ahead or more and stay there for the whole race. That way, if something went wrong, I had a little bit of cushion time. So we kind of went out. Like the first section of the race starts on a bike path that goes around the Dillon Reservoir, which has, I mean, for a bike path, it has awesome views. You can see the water and the mountains in the background and stuff. So for running through town to start the race, it was nice. It gave us a chance to make up some time.
Yeah.
Before we hit the single track and technical. So
brilliant. And now I don't think there were comparatively many folks running this race. Were there like 50 folks maybe, or maybe not quite that many, but there weren't a whole lot of folks running the 200 in the first place. And I think just looking at Ultra Signup, about 50% of those finished and 50 didn't this go around. So did you factor that into your strategy? Like, hey, there's a great possibility here that I might be alone for quite some time as I go through the mountains here. Was that in your thinking at all? And did it play out that way in the end, aside from Renee and Lisa?
So that's kind of why I wanted to stay with them, because I was like, I could be alone for a long time. And yeah, the race field started with 25 runners. It was I've started races with smaller than that. I think the smallest was 7, starting 100 mile.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't necessarily worried with the numbers, but I did kind of have the mindset going in. I was like, man, I could be out there for a long time and not see anybody unless I was in the aid station. So I definitely was prepared for that and tried to just prepare my mind, like, this 20 or 22 mile section that could take 7-8 hours.
Yeah.
Or longer, if it goes bad. So yeah, I had that player in my head, but it never really panned out that way. I was around or with somebody for all of the race except for about like 6 miles. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the race then. So we've talked strategy and training. So how did the race itself go? How did it unfold? Did it go to plan? Did you find yourself having to adapt your strategy a lot as you went? Like how did this thing play out for you?
It played out better than I had planned. Honestly, there wasn't any super low moments, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had some struggle moments, but yeah. So the race just, it kind of just flowed, and I just took it aid station to aid station and focused on. I had a little cheat sheet that was laminated in my pack, and it had like all the stats for between each aid station, how long, my estimated time, and stuff like that. And I just kept it at that, trying to keep it very small-minded, focused on okay, this is what I got to do to get to this aid station. So breaking it up like that was, I think, a huge reason that it was a success. Every time I have thought of, well, I've got 70 more miles or, 50 more miles, and you're in a low, that can be really daunting. But if you just say to yourself, I've got 9 more miles to this aid station or whatever it is, it's like, it makes it a lot more manageable. And then you can ride that low to another high. I mean, the race is really just a roller coaster in terms of the actual terrain and the mental aspect of it.
Did you find any unexpected challenges out there that you hadn't thought about in advance? Anything that you hadn't considered before you got out on the course? Or did it all go to plan pretty much?
I don't think there was anything that like stuck out that was like crazy, had to learn on the fly or something like that. The one thing I knew going in was, not by experience, but other people had said, like, your foot pain just from being on your feet that long is,
it's a big one.
It's another level than 100. And so I knew that, but once you actually get there, it's like, oh my, this is like, these are my only feet. This is the pain. So that was probably the biggest struggle, just foot ache, It was. It wasn't that I had a lot of blisters. I had a few, but it was just the pounding. I'm a bigger guy, so like that pounding on my feet. So every aid station, I would either sit and have people, it's nice when you can ask them and they're willing to bring it to you. Other races, like, I'll just stand up and, keep going. But this one, I kind of took the approach, like, I'm going to be out here a while. I should use my crew or the aid station volunteers.
That's what they're there for.
And they were awesome.
Did you find your feet swelled up a lot? Because I know when I've done 200s, my ankles in particular and my feet swell like crazy.
Yeah. I think it was around, I want to say around like 130 or so, 120, 130, that my feet started swelling. And I had a plan for that. I thought ahead. I asked somebody else. They gave me the thought to have a pair of shoes sized up. So I had a pair of shoes that was a size bigger and a size wide for the swelling, and that really helped. It was an awesome tip going into this.
Great tip.
I think it really I don't know if it saved the race, but it definitely helped on the back half.
Oh yeah, that foot pain really starts to gnaw at you after a while, and then you look down and you see your ankles like twice their normal width. Man, that can mess with your mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about sleep. Did you have a defined strategy going into Summit 200? Because I know they had sleep stations, I think, that were available. Did you specifically plan to stop at those, and how did that work out? Or did you just kind of drop on the trail and do what you wanted?
Yeah, so my sleep did not go to plan.
All right.
So I did plan to sleep at all 4 of the sleep stations, take advantage of that. I knew that I get pretty sleepy at night. Every race, I've gotten sleepy. Caffeine doesn't always work. And so I planned to sleep. I think it was like a total of, I want to say like 6 to 7 hours total. Okay. And I had broke it up between each aid station. Like the first one, I was like, just get like a 30-minute nap to an hour and then keep going. But yeah, the first one, I'll get to there. That first night I was so happy that I was not alone. There was definitely a couple spots where if you were super sleep deprived, you could fall off and roll down the mountain. And so I was like, I'm really glad that I wasn't alone, but it seemed like the 4 of us that were together were all kind of struggling a little bit with staying awake. But it helped that we were all together, and we had to, every like 2 miles or so, we would sit and take like a 5-minute, just close your eyes and then keep going.
Yeah.
Just to get us through that. That first night was it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. It was one of the more rough nights just because of the sleep. I mean, I was trying to stay awake, but it just couldn't. And I don't know how you combat that.
Yeah, this is the first night that you were out there.
Yeah, the very first night, I was like, "Oh, great! This is going to be
what a
rough
precedent
ride.
to set." Yeah, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. So we got through it. It's like hours longer than I had planned on my sheet, and that's kind of when you just say, just survive.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, just go with it. You know, we got to the aid station at like 5. This was the North Fork Loop, so the night section was actually the longest section of the first day, and it said it was about 16 miles. We all came out with our watches saying it was around like 19 miles. I don't know if that's even accurate. It might have been like our downtime, like, you know, just adding some time on there. But
yeah, when the watch GPS is moving.
Yeah. So, but we got back to the aid station, and once you got back there, that was when you could use the sleep tent and the cots and stuff. And I got back there, and I was really surprised. There was no room in the end. So,
oh really?
There was enough runners that everybody was still sleeping.
Oh.
And they said there was like 3 runners that had just came in within like 30 minutes to an hour. And I was like, I'm not kicking anybody out. Like the rule was the person that's been sleeping the longest will give up their spot for the next person.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, they just got there. So I ended up just taking a dirt nap in my bivy bag, and it worked out great. You know, I had the aid station workers there keeping an eye on me, so I wasn't like worried about like waking up. I said, hey, can you guys wake me up in a little bit? And yeah, it was good. I was cold. I was pretty cold. I think that night and that morning was the coldest stretch of the race, or coldest point. We were down by a creek for part of it and had to do a creek crossing at like 4 a.m.
Ooh. And
then, yeah, just coming from Kansas right now, it's most days it's, you know, high 90s, high humidity, and going to Colorado was kind of a shock with it being 35 degrees that morning. So I had, there's some pictures, but I had all my layers almost on.
everything in my pack, like, put it on, man.
Yeah, I was being a baby, and then like as soon as you start the climb, you know you're gonna take it off again. But you know, you got to do what you got to do and stay comfortable.
What were the swings of temperature? I mean, there was 35, and that was the coldest. What was the average? Would you have said? Was it like 40s, 50s, up to the 80s?
Most of the nights were then in the low 40s to mid 40s, and then the high temperatures during the day, maybe like 73 to 75, something like that. I never actually looked at. I didn't have the weather on my phone, but
what, you weren't checking the weather halfway up a mountain during the day?
No.
All right, three quick questions for you then, Jonathan. All just right. As we're going. Favorite part of the race for you, segment that you liked most or least, and favorite aid station?
Ooh, favorite section I think would have to be from Hall Valley to Lodgepole, from mile 100 to 122. And you climb up this Jeep road and go up to a summit, and the views were just amazing. And you kind of hit that section twice, but from a different mountain range. So you can see where you were the day before and see how far you've come, knowing like how much time has passed from the point that you were just there. And you did this like crazy loop to get back up to there. And then there's a section like you're climbing the ridge, and it wasn't like dangerous fall. Well, if you went to the edge, it would have been, but you got basically a cliff on either side. And that section, it was just, you had high altitude, awesome views. And then it ended with getting to run on the Colorado Trail down to the Lodgepole aid station. So I think that was my favorite section.
Favorite aid station? I mean, they're all pretty good with Ultraverse usually. I mean, they don't mess around with aid stations. But was there a particular favorite, either a location or just something happened there that you were like,
I'm gonna have to say,
food?
I'm gonna have to say Francie's cabin, and not because it was inside, you know, and it was the only aid station that was indoors, but at the point of the race, it was pretty hot then. Being able to get inside out of the sun and just chill. Casey's parents were there, Ken and Kim.
Yes.
And so they're some of the best volunteers ever. They joke with you. They always have a smile on their face, but they take real good care of all the runners. And Kim had I had told her, I was like, where's, at one of the earlier aid stations, like, where's all the watermelon? Like, she doesn't know. Watermelon's like one of my favorite things in an aid station. And so there wasn't watermelon at all the aid stations or any of them that I noticed. And so I get to Francie's cabin at 157 miles and she has cold watermelon. I almost cried over watermelon.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the food. I mean, like every aid station had great hot food ready to, they would ask you what you want and make it on the spot. And
excellent.
Nobody was leaving without their hot food. But all the aid stations were great.
Yeah. And we talked about altitude too. And of course, that's a big thing in this race. It starts at 9,000 feet and goes up to, I think we said 12 and a half or just a little bit over that. And it never goes below 9,000 feet. So how did you deal with that coming from Kansas? Were you there in advance? Did you spend time acclimating, if I can say it right? Did you feel it at all as you were going through the course? Yeah.
So my very first 100-mile attempt was out in Fairplay, Colorado. And that's my only DNF so far, but the altitude really kicked my butt on that one. And I didn't acclimate before. Like, I had showed up 2 days before the race and went out and tried it and felt like an elephant was on my chest. It was so hard to breathe. So I knew before Leadville and these other ones, it's like I spent basically a week before doing Leadville, and it really helped. And so before this, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to, make the effort to acclimate. So I came out 8 days before the race and was just dirt bagging it out of my van. Was lucky enough to have some things to do. Like, I got to go mark part of the course with Chase, and I put together drop bags and stuff like that to keep occupying my mind and time. But yeah, just getting out there early. I had some friends running High Lonesome, and so I got to go down and help with that and see them, and it made the whole experience that much better. Just getting out not just acclimate, but having good things to do, and I was never bored. So
yeah. Well, talking of friends too, I think you had a crew out there supporting you during the race, if I remember. Maybe you just had pacers. I'm not sure. Did you have a crew? And if so, how did they contribute to your success? And, were there any sort of key moments where their support really made the difference between you carrying on or not carrying on? Or talk about the crew. I love crews, man. They don't get their dues a lot of the time. So definitely want to give a shout out if you've had any folks out there helping you.
So I had awesome crew and awesome pacers. The crew was my crew and they were both crewing and both pacing. So I had Scott Haggerty was crewing, and then he was pacing the back half of the race. And so it made a huge difference. I think seeing other people that didn't have a crew versus me having one. I don't know that I would do this. Some people do it, and they choose to not have crew, not have pacers, and they like that challenge. They like being the solo. For me, I love the experience and bringing people along with it that are willing to help. And so it made all the difference for me in this race, having them. They did awesome. Scott was crewing, and then Ashley Forche, I met her running at Outlaw, and just by talking during another race, she's like, well, I live out there. I'll pace you if you need somebody. And it just worked out. I mean, it was awesome. They both, I had never had them crew or pace me. And so I was like, this is going to be a fun experience.
Here we go.
Yeah. New thing, but they did awesome. I mean, they're both seasoned veterans when it comes to ultra running. And so it wasn't like I was picking a newbie.
Yeah.
So Ashley paced me from 72 miles to 133. And then Scott jumped in and paced me the rest of the way in. So
that's some good pacing right there. 60, 70 miles a piece. Yeah, that's some good stints.
It was not, they did not have an easy job.
Yeah. Across all that terrain, that's a tough pacing gig right there.
But just having somebody to have a conversation with, and they respected like the time when I needed to just be silent and just didn't, be in my own head and my own thoughts and stuff. But just having them there was confidence, and it was awesome. It was enjoyable with both of them. They did a great job.
So talk us through, if you would, the final section, crossing the line. What were you feeling as you went over that line? What kind of state were you in at that point? And when you got across the line, was your family there or right?
Yeah. So the section going into the last aid station is a high ridge, and we hit that at night. It had just stormed and stuff. And we get down a super long descent into the last aid station. And I decide I'm good on time with the cutoffs. So I want to get some good sleep. So I get some good sleep. The crew is out there. My friend Jonathan came to just hang out and crew and see me across the finish line. So having them all there, I got some sleep. We took out just before sunrise on that would have been the 5th day, Friday. Yeah, that would have been Friday. So going into the 5th day.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to say. That was just, I could not wrap my head around that I had been going all week. So we start out, it starts with a bike path, and then you get on to some beautiful sections of like the Colorado Trail and other trails that are connected to it. And there wasn't any like crazy climbing. There was just some gradual climbs that, a couple, maybe like, I don't know, 800 to 1,000 feet here and there. Like it wasn't a bad section, the last 19 miles from that aid station. So we just kept rolling. It was a slow going pace. I was really feeling the fatigue then, just focused on the present few miles ahead of me. And once we finally got a view of the start finish from up on the mountain, it was like, this is crazy. This is real. It's like, this is the end coming in. And we jumped down we had one last descent. It goes down, and then you take a roundabout way to catch onto a bike path, and that bike path takes you right to the finish. And like, I was just riding on adrenaline and like ready to run this. And Scott's like, calm down, you're good. Like, let's just chill. So we enjoyed that time and walked it into the finish, and then ran the last like 100 yards, and just having the aid station workers that you had seen throughout the race, and Chase and Casey and the photographers, like getting to know them during the race. It was an awesome finish. I couldn't help but tear up at the end, and just reliving all of that time and effort that you spent in training and in the race, and it all coming coming to fruition with a finish was just, it was my race experience. Looking back on it as a whole, I said to myself, I was like, this is my favorite race experience out of all the races that I've done. Just the compilation of it all playing out. It was a pretty special one.
Looking back, Jonathan, do you feel like there's anything you would change, either if you were to do this again or if somebody else was going to go do this race? Would there be anything you would do differently?
Ooh, a lighter pack. I would narrow it down to the bare essentials on the pack. I think my pack ended up weighing about 15 or 16 pounds. You know, you can't change the mandatory gear, but there was just some other things that I think I could have lost out of my pack to make it lighter, because having a really heavy pack for that extended amount of time was, my shoulders were toast at the end. I don't know how through hikers do it.
I tell you, a lot of practice, I guess. I don't know. All right, awesome. Now, this was, I think, as we mentioned early on, the inaugural running of the Summit 200. How do you see this race evolving? Do you think this has the potential to become very much a staple in the ultra running space, especially for mountain 200s? And is there anything you think, I mean, could it be more challenging, or what would make it more attractive for future participants if you had your say?
I mean, I think overall the course and everything was stunning. It was extremely hard. You know, they could leave the course the way it is, and I think it would still grow each and every year. I know that there is several comments about like course marking and stuff that they're for sure gonna rethink. I mean, knowing them, they're going to take it as healthy criticism and make changes for the better. I see the Summit as being a staple like 200 in the U.S. I mean, you have that high elevation, and being in Summit County, it's just like you get to experience Summit County in a whole new way. And yeah, I think the only way forward is it growing.
Yeah,
they're capping their race. They always want to keep it somewhat small, and so they're capping their race at 100. And I think that they're going to sell out, whether this next year or the following year. So I only see it growing from there. And I think for an inaugural year, I think they did a phenomenal job. They had some of the best volunteers that stepped up in a huge way with running multiple aid stations. So I think next year they could get more volunteers, so it's just less stress on some of them. But as a whole, I think they did a phenomenal job with what they had to work with. You know, getting the permits and stuff somewhat late. You know, they did say for the inaugural year that the permits, they couldn't issue the permits until the actual physical year that you run that first race. And so I knew that had to have been crazy stressful for them, but they did a great job.
Yeah, just that permitting side of things just seems mind-blowing. From the amount of different localities, I guess, that you're running through there, you probably need to get permitting from up in the mountains. Just seems, even that on its own just seems like a hell of an effort.
Yeah, being a race director myself, I said there would be absolutely no way I would take on something like that.
You've really got to want to do this race, I think, to go through
really
the
bad
challenge of getting those permits, especially on the back of KT 225 and what happened there, as you were alluding to in the beginning. I bet they had some PTSD over the whole permit situation.
Yeah.
Now, for you specifically, Jonathan, now that you have successfully tackled Summit 200, what's next on your radar? Are you considering another 200? Has that whetted your appetite for that distance? Or do you have your sights set on some other type of challenge?
I'm pretty confident that I'll try another 200 in the future. It won't be for several years. I've got a daughter on the way, so I'm going to be
congrats.
Focusing on family a lot more. I just need to be more present than usual.
Yeah.
But I've got an idea for next year. There's a fun duo race. They combine, like if you do the two races, then you get a buckle with the Hill Creek 140 and the Heartland 125. And so they're both in Kansas, and I might go after that next year. We'll see. but that's kind of what's piquing my interest right now. The two races are 2 weeks apart from each other.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so that really is like smashing them together almost.
Yeah, that'd be a new experience for me because I typically need like a month or more to recover. So
you and me both.
Yeah.
We need a hell of a long time these days to recover for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned rocking chair running, and I mentioned Skyline Scramble prior to getting into this. So before we go, definitely want to give you a little bit of a opportunity to tell us about that race and where the idea to start it came from. What can we expect if we go look up Skyline Scramble?
So the Skyline Scramble kind of bore itself from the local community just kind of saying, I kept just hearing like, hey, we need, it'd be awesome if we had, a local race, a local trail race, because we've had a half marathon and other road races and stuff. But there was, to my knowledge, since I've been in running, there was nothing in Topeka for trails. And so it kind of grew from that idea, and I kind of tossed it out there to my wife, and she was like, well, yeah, I mean, if you really want to do it. And so it was kind of scary for me. Honestly, I've never been a very like public vocal person. Like public speaking terrifies me and stuff. And I knew that like as a race director, I was like, well, I'm going to have to get over that fear. And
front and center.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, the Skyline Scramble kind of came from that. And we were like, well, what trails do we want to do it on? What kind of race do we want to do it on? And I felt like talking with Ed West about it, my co-RD, and Justin, we kind of came up with the idea of doing it, or not, we didn't come up with the idea, but we figured that a timed race would be the best fit. It would lend itself to have like a lot of newer people come into trail running and have that low stress.
Yeah.
Meaning you only got to finish the first loop. You know?
No cutoffs really.
Yeah, exactly. So you come out, you push yourself to your own limit, and what you want to do in that 3, 6, or 12 hours is completely up to you. Just have fun. So that's what we went with for the first one. So I'm looking at making a couple more races. It's slow going with permitting. So
it's always the permitting.
It's always the permitting. So we'll see.
Brilliant. Awesome. Well, yes, folks, get out and give Skyline Scramble a look. If you are in Topeka, Kansas, go look up Skyline Scramble and see if you can sign up and run a distance out there.
Yep.
Now, each episode, Jonathan, we do encourage guests to choose a song to add to the free Spotify Choose to Endure playlist. Something family friendly. Maybe it lifts you up, motivates you, or just kind of keeps you moving while you're out on the trail. Now, you had a really good song, I think, that you picked here, at least for me anyway. I like this kind of music. So do you want to tell the folks out there which song you picked and why it resonates with you?
It's a Steep Climb. I can't remember the artist. Do you remember the artist's name?
I think it was Eric Gales. And I remember distinctly Zach Wilde is on guitar on that, who is a big, and that's why he's a big Ozzy Osbourne guy, right? So But yeah, this is a bluesy rock kind of tune.
Yeah, it's just got a good vibe to it, good sound to it. And then the first time I heard it, the lyrics stuck out to me, just being very applicable to climbing in the mountains or just running in general. Like you could use the mountain lyrics as a metaphor for, getting through training. And so it just stuck out to me. It was a good song.
Yeah, so the song, again, is called Steep Climb, and I jotted down some of the lyrics because I thought, first off, it's a great song, and I listened to some more of Eric Gales right after this song too, and they're all pretty good. But on this song specifically, I jotted down some lyrics. It says, to make it to the top of the mountain is definitely going to be a steep climb. That's life and, well, definitely the race you were running at the time. Yep. But yeah, isn't that the way life is? You got to, there are steep climbs to get to the top of the mountain. And then he goes on to say, when you think you can't take it, you got to stay strong for one more mile. I mean, how applicable is that? That couldn't be more applicable to a race there. So I thought, bang on lyrics and definitely great motivation for an ultra running song, even more so when you're halfway up a mountain in Colorado. So yeah, great choice. I like that one. We'll get that added so that other folks can enjoy it as much as you and I definitely have done. So as we begin to wrap up the episode, I want to extend huge thanks to Jonathan for sharing his incredible journey through this brand new race, the Summit 200, which I think is going to become a really big monster of a race in years to come. It's got epic scenery, it's got epic mountains, an epic route, and really epic altitude and vert to test even the most serious runners out there. His story is a testament to the resilience and determination that really defines ultra running communities, but especially those of us that are near the rear end of the pack, that never give up attitude and that keep pushing forwards. From the flatlands of Kansas to the towering peaks of Summit County, Jonathan's experience is definitely an inspiration to all of us listening, whether you're taking on your first 50K or your very first 200 miler. So I hope that the insights Jonathan has shared into his training and the mental approach and really the beauty of embracing crazy challenges leaves you motivated to pursue your own running goals, no matter how daunting they may seem. And Jonathan, if listeners out there are interested, where can they go to find out more about Ultraverse as an ambassador yourself, about the Skyline Scramble, or indeed follow you on future journeys?
Yeah, they can look up Ultraverse supplements on their website. It lists all their races too. And then they have a blog below there that kind of is more in depth if you want to know more about each supplement and how to use those in training. But they've all worked great for me. I wouldn't be an ambassador if I didn't believe in the product. Yeah, people can follow me on Strava if they want. If you want to follow my running, or if you want to get in contact, you can find me on Facebook. So.
Awesome. And Skyline is on Ultra Sign Up?
Yeah, it's on Ultra Sign Up. The race is March 1st next year. So you got plenty of time to sign up.
Yes, absolutely. And as an, that's difficult to say at this point on a Sunday afternoon, as an Ultraverse ambassador, do you have a code to use as well? I know sometimes that's out there.
Yeah, Rocking Chair 10 will get you 10% off, and you can combine that with any other code, or you can just use my name if there's a better deal on the website, so as a referral.
Fantastic. Well, I will put all of that information into the show notes for this episode. So you scroll down to the show notes and click the links, and you'll be able to go to any or all of those spots. While you're out on the internet, don't forget to subscribe to the show here as well to get notified each time a new episode comes out. And of course, follow, share, and review. It would be very much appreciated. Doing any of those things really helps promote the podcast, which in turn gets the word out, gets the information out, and increases chances of other runners like you and I finding the information that awesome guests such as Jonathan have given up their time to come and share with us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, over at choosetoendure.com. So be sure to head over to any of those spots, check us out, send a message, say hello, or suggest a topic if you have a moment. I love getting all those interactions. So until then, run long, run strong, and keep choosing to endure.